is the 77 WABC minicast.
Gregg Jarrett is an amazing attorney, smart guy, TV personality. He has become a sit babe. He's on this show quite a bit because he's great. Gregg Jarrett, Fox News. Good morning, buddy. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, but I'm really beginning to feel sorry for you. If you've been a Mets fan for that long, you must have a self-loathing complex. And transitioning to the Yankees, it's not going to help.
No?
You're still going to be a loser to the greatest team in baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers, my hometown team, who, by the way, have the best hot dogs in all of America's stadiums.
Well, that's debatable, but they certainly have the best Japanese player, and they are 12-3, and they've won 2 consecutive World Series, well on their way to winning another one. They shut out the Mets last night, so I can't argue any of that, but you don't live in Los Angeles right now, but you're still a Dodger fan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my dad used to take me to Dodger Stadium. I saw Sandy Koufax pitch in the World Series in the 1960s. Twice I watched.
Wow.
And Don Drysdale and all the great players back in the 60s when they won the World Series a couple of times.
Amazing. I got to know Sandy a little bit years ago down in Boca Raton. He lives in Florida. He lives in Boca Raton.
Right.
And they would hold this golf tournament every year in his neighborhood, and they'd allow us to do our show live from there. And once or twice, I think twice, in over a 2-year period, Sandy sat down with us. And, of course, being I'm a loud and proud Jew, you know that, Greg, talking to him about not pitching on Yom Kippur.
Right.
There was some great conversations. And, look, to this day, and we saw some very dominant pitchers over that decade, those decades especially, people like Bob Gibson in St. Louis and Seaver and Carlton, all these amazing pitchers. Nobody is dominant over that period of time in the history of the game like Sandy Koufax.
Absolutely. He must really like you because he's a very private guy.
Yes.
He generally doesn't do interviews.
Nothing.
So
No, he does. He even
must
said
be a
that.
Sid fan.
Oh, who's not, Greg?
Well, that's a long list, Hal. It could take some time.
I know. I tell you who's not is Eric Swalwell. He's not a big fan of mine, as you could imagine, but he's about to have a rough period of time here, and people are trying to figure out, Greg, why he decided to quit everything. And, you know, we know about the House Ethics Committee. Maybe he thinks now he's going to dodge that because he's resigning from the House. The last thing he wants is to face an Ethics Committee and be at a criminal trial over basically the same amount of time. Right. Why do you think he actually did decide to resign from Congress?
Well, his attorney sat him down and gave him a case of the for reals and said, your battle now is to stay out of prison because, you know, you're looking at criminal charges in Manhattan for rape. And, you know, you can't stay in Congress another day because the Ethics Committee has already launched their investigation. You're going to have to answer questions and your answers can and will be used against you in a criminal case in Manhattan. So your only option is to quit. Plus, he knew that the momentum was building on both sides of the aisle to kick him out of Congress. So it was only a matter of days before that was going to happen. So he got ahead of it and did the right thing. And for Eric Swalwell to do the right thing is a rather astonishing event in and of itself.
Well, that was just out of desperation. It wasn't because there was any moral clarity. I mean, even the Democrats, the truth is, there really wasn't a lot of Democrats who wanted to resign from Congress. They did want him to step down from his governor run because they don't want 9 Democrats going up against 2 Republicans. But a lot of Democrats refused to actually ask him to resign from Congress until Anna Paulina Luna started that, Nancy Mace on the right side. So if you think the Democrats all of a sudden actually care about these victims, they proved it to us through Sunday that they don't.
Yeah, you know, what strikes me about the whole thing is how long it took for Eric Swalwell to self-destruct. I mean, this was self-immolation that was long ago expected. You have to understand that this guy is a fundamentally weird, strange human being. And everybody, has known that who's ever interacted with him. He teamed up with Adam Schiff to leak classified documents in the Great Russia hoax to try to destroy Trump. Those are criminal acts, by the way, leaking classified documents. And, Swalwell was always hyping the Russia hoax without any evidence whatsoever. And, at every turn, he was the kind of guy who was, saying anything and doing anything for vengeance against Donald Trump principally. And, I find these allegations, as everybody has, to be incredibly shocking. And, I think he's going to, end up in the Huskow.
Me too.
Unless he, somehow magically pulls a rabbit out of his hat, because, you can just envision the alleged victim testifying in front of a jury in Manhattan about what he did. And there's corroborating evidence of it. And then you throw in all of the other despicable acts in which he was a predator of young women. And, things are not going to end up well for Eric Swalwell.
And what's interesting is he branded himself as this fighter for women. Remember how angry and difficult he was on Justice Kavanaugh? Remember all that?
Oh,
and
yeah.
It turns out he was the guy, and this is often the case in life. We see this a lot. The one that's yelling and screaming about the other guy, they're actually the bad guy. And that's been the case with Swalwell. Now, I heard another rumor. I want to move to the Epstein files because Pam Bondi is out. We know that, okay? And people say, well, she's out because President Trump didn't like the way she handled the Epstein files. Others say, well, President Trump was pissed off because she didn't really go after Jim Comey hard enough and these other people that made his life miserable. But I heard a rumor that she leaked something, Pam Bondi, to the aforementioned Eric Swalwell. Did you hear that?
Yeah, of course, that rumor has been floating around as the reason that Trump fired her. I don't know whether that's true or not. But she has always been a champion of women, and good for her. And her position is that the victims need to be heard. And they need to be heard at hearings in Congress. They can choose to do it behind closed doors and maintain some level of anonymity, or they can do it in open. And I frankly don't see anything wrong with that. Now, understand that several of the victims, alleged victims, have already given their testimony to Congress and to the Department of Justice. And I compliment the First Lady for demanding transparency, or at least a greater degree of transparency.
I got to tell you, and she was on this show not that long ago, and her guy Mark is on this show, Beckham, and I love Melania. I do. I don't know why she did that. And I know her husband can't be happy about it. Do you know Gregg Jarrett? I never met Jeffrey Epstein. I was a kid doing sports. I never ran in his circles. Do you know that every day, not to make it about myself, but every day I'm called a pedophile. Every day on Twitter you can find at least 5 to 10 mentions where people call me a pedophile. Why? Because I'm friendly with President Trump. Why would Melania Trump bring all that back last week and once again thrust this story into the spotlight? Why?
Well, I can only speculate that, she realizes that there is nothing whatsoever to directly implicate Trump in any wrongdoing, her husband. And so transparency, sunshine is the greatest disinfectant, as Supreme Court Justice once so famously said. And, if you have nothing to hide, don't hide. And she feels confident in that. At least that's my take on it.
No, you're right.
Democrats, on the other hand, said, they led the charge to release the file, but it turns out that, Epstein, who was a lifelong Democrat, was entangled with far more Democrat politicians and others that have had their reputations badly tarnished. Larry Summers, Senator Bob Kerrey, George Mitchell, Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman, Casey Wasserman, big Dem donor. And, of course, Bill Clinton, not to mention a whole host of powerful Democrat lawyers. It's a who's who of liberals, not Republicans.
Yeah.
So, I think she also realizes that as well.